My life is basically a constant, low-grade earthquake. I live in a state of what I like to call chaotic equilibrium. My job is walking dogs, not one or two well-behaved purebreds, but a mismatched pack of 6 rescue mutts with enough collective anxiety to power a small city. My apartment looks like a thrift store exploded. My schedule is a suggestion. I'm perpetually 5 minutes late, covered in a fine layer of dog hair, and I wouldn't have it any other way. On the opposite end of the human spectrum, there are people like Elias Vance. I didn't know his name at first. I just knew him as the guy whose life I ruined in the span of about 90 seconds. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was wrangling my pack down a picture-perfect street in Laurelhurst. It was the kind of street where the hydrangeas were impossibly blue, and the lawns looked like they were cut with nail scissors. I was trying to untangle Brutus, a bulldog mix with a vendetta against squirrels, from around a stop sign when Barnaby, a lanky hound with zero self-awareness, spotted an open door. An open door to a house with an open house sign out front. It was like a chain reaction. Barnaby bolted, dragging the rest of the pack with him. I yelled, I pulled, I probably swore in a way that made the property values dip. But it was no use. 6 dogs, leashes hopelessly tangled, shot through that open door like a furry, 4-legged wrecking ball. The inside of the house was perfect. Too perfect. It was staged within an inch of its life. White couches, minimalist art, a single orchid on a glass coffee table. It was the kind of place that made you feel bad for having organs. My dogs, however, did not feel bad. They saw a pristine, white shag rug and decided it was the greatest thing they had ever seen. They rolled. They wrestled. They tracked muddy paw prints all over it. Brutus, in his excitement, knocked over a spindly floor lamp, which luckily didn't break, but did land with a resounding clang. And standing in the middle of it all, with a look of pure, distilled horror on his face, was a man. He was impeccably dressed in a crisp button-down shirt and tailored slacks. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and his jaw was set so tight I thought it might crack. He looked at the chaos I had unleashed upon his sanctuary, and then he looked at me. His eyes were a cool, clear gray, and right now they were 2 shards of ice. This was Elias Vance. Get them out, he said, each word a perfectly enunciated icicle. It took me 10 minutes to untangle the leashes, apologize profusely to the 2 terrified-looking potential buyers, and drag my muddy, ecstatic pack back outside. When I turned back, Elias was standing on the porch, holding a single muddy dog toy that Barnaby had dropped. He was holding it between his thumb and forefinger as if it were radioactive. "The rug is a rental," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "It's ruined. The floor will need to be professionally cleaned. You knocked over $1,000 lamp. And you scared off my only clients of the day." He wasn't yelling. It was worse. He was itemizing my failure. "Look, I am so sorry," I said, my own stress level skyrocketing. "It was an accident. I'll pay for it, I promise." He gave me a long, skeptical look that took in my ripped jeans, my dog hair-covered hoodie, and the general chaos of my existence. "Right," he said, the single word dripping with disbelief. "Let's be realistic. The cleaning and the damages will be at least $500. Do you have $500? I opened my mouth, then closed it. The honest answer was no. My rent was due tomorrow, and I had maybe $100 to my name. He sighed a long, weary sound and pinched the bridge of his nose. He looked genuinely exhausted. This was not on my schedule. He was quiet for a long moment, then his eyes flicked to the pack of dogs, who were now sitting in a tangled, panting pile on the sidewalk, looking very pleased with themselves. "You're a dog walker?" he asked. "Yeah, it's what I do." "Are you good at it?" The question was so odd, I just stared at him. "Aside from the occasional home invasion, yeah, I'm good at it. I specialize in difficult dogs. Rescues, mostly." He seemed to mull this over. "I have a situation," he said finally. "A canine situation. I need help. You can work off your debt." And that's how I ended up with a job that was even weirder than my last one. The next day, I went to Elias's actual house. It was not the staged, soulless property from yesterday. It was a sleek, modern condo downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that probably cost more than my entire life. And it was just as obsessively neat. Everything was at a right angle. The books on his shelves were organized by color. There was not a single thing out of place. It was like living inside a design magazine. Except for one thing. Cowering in the corner of the living room, behind a ridiculously expensive-looking chair, was a dog. It was a terrier mix with scruffy gray fur and the most terrified eyes I had ever seen. That's Arthur, Elias said, standing a stiff 10 feet away from him. My sister rescued him a month ago. Then she got a job in London. So now he's my dog. He said the word dog like it was a complex legal term he didn't quite understand. He won't eat if I'm in the room, Elias continued, his voice flat. He won't go on walks. He just hides. I've tried everything. Scheduled feeding times. Positive reinforcement with a clicker. Soothing soundscapes. Nothing works. Of course it didn't. This dog didn't need a schedule. He needed a friend. Okay, I said, kicking off my shoes. First rule, get on his level. I sat down on the floor, cross-legged. Elias remained standing, looking deeply uncomfortable with the idea of sitting on his own floor. I ignored him and focused on the dog. Hey buddy, I said, my voice low and soft. I didn't look directly at him. I just sat there, making myself small and unthreatening. I pulled a small bag of dried liver treats out of my pocket. I'm never without them. I placed one on the floor a few feet in front of me. I didn't push it toward him. I just left it there, an offering. We sat in silence for almost 20 minutes. Elias paced nervously in the background, a disruptive, anxious energy. Could you maybe go into the other room? I asked him. Your hovering is stressing him out. And me. Elias looked offended, but he retreated to his kitchen. The moment he was out of sight, Arthur's ears twitched. He took a tentative step forward, then another. He sniffed the treat. His tail gave a single, hesitant wag. He ate it. I spent the next hour like that, slowly moving the treats closer, speaking in a low, soothing murmur. By the time Elias came back into the room, Arthur was lying down with his head in my lap, letting me scratch behind his ears. Elias just stood there, speechless. He was looking at us with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. It was a mix of awe, frustration, and something else, something softer. How did you do that? He whispered. He's scared, I shrugged. You can't schedule trust. You have to earn it, and you smell like bleach. Thus began the strangest working relationship of my life. 3 times a week, I'd come to Elias's sterile condo to teach him how to connect with his own dog. It was like watching an alien try to understand the concept of love. Okay, now just sit with him, I'd say. For how long? Elias would ask. Should I set a timer? No man, just until it feels right. How do I know when it feels right? He was a man who lived by logic and order, and a dog is a creature of pure, illogical emotion. They were speaking 2 different languages. I was their translator. Slowly, painfully, it started to work. Arthur started coming out from behind the chair. He started eating his meals. One day, we finally got him to go for a walk outside. It was a huge victory. We were standing on the sidewalk, watching Arthur tentatively sniff a tree, and Elias had a genuine, unforced smile on his face. It completely transformed him. It made him look younger, softer. I really thought I was failing him, Elias admitted, his guard down for a moment. You weren't failing, I said. You were just trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. Life's not a spreadsheet, man. It's messy. You would know, he said, but for the first time, it didn't sound like an insult. It sounded like an observation, maybe even a compliment. Our session started to feel less like work and more like hanging out. We'd talk. I'd tell him about the ridiculous drama of my dog pack, how Brutus was a secret cuddler, how Barnaby kept trying to adopt stray cats. He'd tell me about his work, staging homes for people, creating perfect, idealized versions of life that anyone could project themselves onto. It's peaceful, he said, controlling the chaos, making everything look exactly how it's supposed to. Sounds lonely, I said without thinking. He looked at me, and for a second, I saw a flicker of something raw in his cool, gray eyes. He didn't deny it. One evening, I was showing him how to play a gentle game of tug-of-war with Arthur. Elias was actually on the floor, his slacks were probably getting wrinkled, and he was laughing. A real deep laugh. Arthur was wagging his tail, a happy, playful growl in his throat. The condo was filled with a warm, happy energy. For a moment, it felt like a home, not a showroom. I was sitting on his perfect white couch, a couch I was now allowed on, and just watching them. A wave of affection, so strong and unexpected it almost knocked me over, washed through me. It wasn't just for the dog. Elias looked up and caught me staring. His smile faded slightly, replaced by a more serious, searching expression. The playful energy in the room evaporated, replaced by a different kind of tension. A low, humming current that had been building between us for weeks. What? He asked, his voice quiet. Nothing, I said, my own voice a little shaky. It's just nice to see you happy. He stood up, brushing off his pants. Arthur, sensing the shift in mood, trotted over and lay down at my feet. Elias walked over and stood in front of the couch, looking down at me. I don't think I understood what happy was, he said, his voice barely a whisper. I thought it was about having everything in the right place. Order. Control. But it was just quiet. He looked around his perfect, silent apartment. This place is quiet when you're not here, Liam. And I'm starting to hate it. My heart was hammering against my ribs. My place is never quiet, I said. It's a mess. I know, he said. He reached out and tucked a stray piece of hair behind my ear. His touch was feather-light, but it sent a jolt through my entire body. Maybe I need a little bit of your mess. And maybe you need a little bit of my quiet. He leaned down, and I met him halfway. His kiss was exactly like him, precise and intentional, and it completely overwhelmed my senses. It wasn't a chaotic, fumbling kiss. It was sure and steady, and it made my chaotic world stand still for a single perfect moment. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against mine. I could feel his breath on my skin. My debt is paid off, you know, I whispered. I know, he said. This isn't about that anymore. For the record, I forgave the debt the day you got Arthur to eat that treat. So what have I been doing here for the last month? I asked, a smile playing on my lips. You've been staging my life, he said, and his own smile finally returned, brighter than I'd ever seen it, making it look like a place someone could actually live. It turned out we were both right. I needed some of his quiet, and he needed some of my mess. My life is still an earthquake, but now it has a calm center. And Elias's life is still orderly, but now there are muddy paw prints on the floor, a half-chewed toy on his perfect white couch, and a guy who is perpetually 5 minutes late but always happy to come home.